back here today, and we had the cab on the truck to get all the truck bed measurements. We did that, so we removed it, and we've got it here. Now that looks like there's some green on there, but we've got this other panel we actually sprayed out and brought this up to color. So explain to us why that's green and what you did to bring this up to color.
Well, initially we were going to go with the British Racing Green, which that covered pretty good. About 3 coats, it was up to color. This color is a little bit more transparent. So this is actually a tinted sealer that we're going to apply right before we start putting the base coat. And that's going to knock down from going from 7 coats to about 4 coats. And paint's very expensive. The base coats alone could be anywhere from $300 to $800 a gallon, possibly more. So if we can knock down almost half the coats that we need to apply, that's half the paint. That's time and money right there.
Okay, now it looks like there's some seams. What do we do with some of these seams that looks like they still need a little work?
Well, what we have here is a Finish First gray seam sealer. You want to apply that to your seams to seal them up.
Okay.
And what that's going to do is it's going to make that watertight. You'll be able to apply your sealer and base coat right over the top of that. So you don't want to apply this and then start doing body work. You want to make sure you apply this right before you go to paint, because body work, the fillers, multiple layers of primer can actually crack over the top of this. So you want to make sure that this is applied properly.
So once that dries up, we're going to end up making this whole cab green. Okay?
Yes, inside and out.
Now I've heard the term wet on wet. What exactly does that mean?
Well, the wet on wet process is going to be me applying 1 coat of this sealer over the inside and out of all this. I'm going to let 15 minutes flash to get the solvents to dry up out of that, and then 15 minutes in between each base coat. So we're going to do 1 coat of this, we're going to do 4 coats of base coat, and then we're going to do 3 coats of clear.
Now what happens if you do the base coat and something gets in the paint? Can you do anything about it?
In between the base coats, you want to use a premium tack cloth. These are sticky. A lot of them got linseed oil in it. And what that does, it's going to help to get the debris off of it. Anything that's floating in the air that may rest on there, it's going to get that off. It's going to help get some of the dried up overspray off of it. And it's just going to ensure a good quality paint job.
So you can go ahead and use that in between the base coat. What about once
Correct.
you start clearing? Can you use a tack cloth at that point?
Once you start clearing, it takes a long time for that clear to cure. So you can only use this in between base coats, because base coat will dry up to a point to where it's not sticky to touch, and tack it off with that. Now, if you happen to get any dirt that gets trapped in there, you can actually use sandpaper and just wet it a little bit and nub it out with about 1,500, 2,000 grit. You can even go down to about 1,000 grit if you want.
Okay. Now, what's the rest of the process here?
Well, so we're going to go ahead and push this into the booth. We're going to wipe it down with wax and degreaser. We've already applied our seam sealer. So 45 minutes later, we're ready to paint. So when you're spraying, you want to do about a 50% overlap. You want to keep about 8 to 10 inches away, and it doesn't matter if you're spraying primer, base coat, clear, it's all the same. So you want to watch your spray pattern, and you want to make sure that you don't get dry areas. Just keep it even, and you need to basically act like a robot. So the more you can keep the overlaps even, the better paint job you're going to have and a better final result.
All right, we just got the cab out of the paint booth, and Michael, I got to tell you, you did an absolutely amazing job.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I was here late last night, but we've come a long way.
Yeah, we have. And that brings us up to the 3rd stage of the 4P process, which is paint. And we've got a lot of different products here. We've got 6-inch DA discs, sponges, different tools, and we also have some waterproof sandpaper. And the main reason for this stage is to get rid of any blemishes in the paint, which is sags, runs, any debris that got into the paint. So Michael, you want to show us how some of these products work?
Yeah, let's get busy.
All right.
So we're up here on the roof. I like to start at the highest point and work my way down. And I'm going to show you a couple options that we have. Finish First offers a micro zip, so if you're just looking to take small dirt nibs out, you could focus right on the dirt nib instead of working a big area. You could focus right on that. You could take the Finish First squeegee, dry it off to see where you're at. We also offer the Finish First 6-inch DA pad, so if you're working a little bit larger area, you want to make sure that this is wet. You work the area that you need to work. And again, you want to work small areas at a time, dry it off to see where you're at. Me personally, I like to just use the squeegee and paper. So I get it wet, and I'm just gonna hand block, which I'll hand block this entire cab and all the rest of the parts, and I'm gonna take everything out of it. I'm gonna take the orange peel, all the dirt nibs, and get this paint as flat as I can get it. Now what that's gonna do is it's gonna give a lot deeper shine, and it's gonna bring that gloss level up. So we just keep working and drying the area off. And you can see the shiny spots and the dull spots. So once you get it to where everything's dull and everything looks smooth, you're heading in the right track. And we'll start with 1500 grit, work our way up to 3000. Once we get to 3000, that's going to cut the buff time down to where you can go over the buffer and don't have to worry about 1500 grit scratches still being left behind. So I can see the area that I'm working is starting to really flatten out. So I move on to the next spot. And I work small areas at a time. That way I can stay focused on what I've done. You don't want to just keep wandering. A lot of guys will, just keep moving around. It's best to just stay focused on a small area, dry it off, and make sure you've covered it real well, and move on to the next section. So here on the back of the cab, what we got is we got a little run. It's actually not so little. It's about 6 inches long. And I'm going to show you a trick on how to repair that. If you try to use a sandpaper on a block, it's going to sand all that down evenly and you'll still have that run in there. You actually may bust through the paint around it. So a trick is to just use a common razor blade, and what you'll do is you keep it straight up and down and just scrape it across there. And what that's going to do is that's going to act as kind of a file. And you don't want to get too aggressive with it, and you also want to make sure that this is dried up enough to do this. If it's not cured up enough, it can actually roll the paint up off the base coat, and then you're going to have to repaint. So just keep scraping until it kind of feathers out into. See it here, you can see how it's highlighting just the run itself. So once you get that knocked down, you'll actually kind of see it start feathering out and leveling itself out to what's around it. Once you have that feathered out, you can go ahead and switch to the sandpaper in the block and go from there, and that'll smooth it out and you won't even know that run's there. So now I'm going to use a Finish First 1500 grit sanding sponge. It's a little stiffer, so it's going to help keep that flat. So we've got about that 90% out. So I'll keep going until I'm nice and flat, and then I'll be ready for the next step. Now this is obviously sandpaper, so don't be afraid or alarmed to see it dulling down, because what you're doing is you're sanding that surface flat. Now it's going to remain dull, and later on I will show you how to bring that gloss level back up with a higher grit paper. And then we're going to buff it with a buffer and rubbing compound to bring that gloss level up higher than where we started. Now when you use this paper, you want to put it in the bucket and let it soak up water. And what that's going to do is that's going to loosen that paper up enough to where it's going to sand easier. Now I'm actually just dunking it in the bucket. I like doing that because I know I'm rinsing the paper off as I go. Some people use a squirt bottle, which is fine. And you can also take a rag, dunk it in there, just add the water on there as well. So these are areas that you want to look for as you sand. You'll see just shininess around it. Those are little dirt nibs. So once you get that sanded down, you want it all to look nice and flat. And once it's nice and flat, you're ready to move to the next stage. So we got it all sanded down with 1500 grit now. So I'm going to go to 2500 grit next. So we'll go over the whole cab with 2500 grit, and then we'll go to the next step.
Now before we get into the next step of the 4P process, which is polish, we've got a lot of other parts that need painted, including the custom bed that we're building. Join us next week and we'll show you where we're at with that. If you'd like to see more, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Or follow our blog on gofinishfirst.com.